So I think we'll get started when people will slowly come in. This is my opening slide, titled Buddha's Everywhere. This is part one. And what we're going to discuss is appreciating Buddhism in a visual way, through art, through form, something that's immersive and that touches your heart. Rather than being doctrinal or being text-based, we look at images and statues and forms and chanting as a way of touching our heart. And this class or lecture also dovetails well with Aaron Prophet's last live event that we had. He talked a lot about Mahayana Buddhism trying to awaken our sense of imagination. We're really good at imagining a false permanent self. And so I think the Mahayana Buddhists were thinking how much easier it might be to imagine the true self through visual stimulus, colors and smells and sounds, is a way to really touch one's heart directly rather than trying to work our way through our intellect. And I wanted to mention that I'm a visual learner. I'm not a very good listener, and that's not good in Jodo Shinshu. I'm very visual. And when I went to UCLA, and I was a math major, I used to highlight everything in the book that I read. It was kind of a physical reinforcement of highlighting the line as I read it. It kind of locked it into my brain. And so I went to the professor once to ask a question, and I opened up my book and I showed it to him, and both the facing and both of the facing pages were almost all yellow. And he told me what I should do is, maybe to be more efficient, is just highlight the 3 lines on these 2 pages that you don't find interesting. But I think he missed the point. I need tactile. I need visual. And I really appreciate how the Hondo makes us feel. My wife and I and our family came to OCBC in 1997 for the Hanamatsuri Festival in April. And we walked into the Hondo, and it was lit up bright. All the gold leaf was radiating. There was incense burning, and it was completely silent. And I remember it kind of took my breath away, and it kind of stopped me in my tracks. And I remember thinking to myself, I wish my life felt the way this altar looks. And it really did stoke my imagination, awaken a desire, an inspiration to seek. And so I think I went on later to read books, but I think the initial impetus of my Buddhist path was non-doctrinal, and it was how that room felt. And it's actually designed that way. It's actually like an advertisement for awakening, the way the world would look through enlightened eyes. So a lot of this live event comes from this book. It's called Behold the Buddha by James C. Dobbins. He also wrote the book Letters of the Nun Eshini. That's the one in our tradition most people know about, Shinran's wife's letters. But this book's much more recent, and this is a quote from the book. He says, "Images of the Buddha have a narrative quality about them, as if telling a story or describing a momentous occurrence. It thus constitutes a sacred narrative that undergirds the religion as a whole. Observers who are attuned to it while engaging the icon are able to behold the Buddha and hear the story." And another one of the books I have, it says that Zen starts out with a practice and Jodo Shinshu starts with a story. And this story is transformative. It's a narrative that you can align your life with. So I want to tell another story. When I first started practicing Shin Buddhism, I didn't really understand quite what the Amida Buddha statue was for. I thought maybe it was a person or a god. I grew up Protestant, and I was kind of used to leaning into doctrine and texts more than religious objects. And this is one of the things I think that's funny. I was visual in everything else in my life, but when it came to religion, I was a Protestant, and I was looking for texts. And we have a program called the International Minister Orientation Program, where ministers that were trained in Japan come here for about 4 to 6 months to be trained in the American way of life, to become assigned in America. And Reverend Harada said they always picked families that would kind of show them what the all-American family was like. And he would always pick mine, and I always thought that was a really bad choice. But anyway, I drove him to and from church, and you kind of want to make conversation. And I looked at him as we were driving, and I asked him, do people in Japan think of Amida Buddha as a personal God, as a savior? And he gave me the most wicked side eye I've ever received. It almost disrupted my driving. And he looked at me and he said, "Where did you ever come up with that?" Like, that was the dumbest question he'd ever heard. And it was a great answer. It was a great answer. I think it made me realize the problem was on my side, not on the tradition side. And I began to think about it, this thing about being inconsistent, logically inconsistent. We don't do this with the Statue of Liberty, right? I don't think anybody in the United States thinks that this represents a real woman who's making it easier for people to come to the United States. And it says on the internet, the Statue of Liberty started as a romantic idea and became the most monumental gift in American history. Today it stands as a singular symbol of hope and spirit. And so this crystallizes this way of thinking. And the other day I was talking to someone, and I reminded them that statues like this, they're not a who, they're a what. So they're not representing a person, they're representing an ideal or an emotion or a narrative or a way of life that's meant to touch our hearts. And so I think a lot of Americans, and I think it's very common, the rules we use when it comes to everyday life are quite in contrast with the ones we use religiously. Like, I think most people think Star Wars is a great film, but nobody really wonders if it really happened or not. That isn't the point. It's a myth, it's a legend. It's more true because it's not literal. It's describing the human condition. It's describing life itself. And that is more profound than a literal story full of details. But we don't have that same appreciation when we come to our religious environments. So this is mainly a show and tell live event. I'd like to show you a lot of the statues I have, their meaning. There's a wide variety in the United States. And I think at least half of Buddhism is noisy and very active in form. Statues, paintings, artwork, mandalas. But in the United States, I think we tend to focus on Zen, which is much more austere, more plain, more silent, less active. So I get a lot of statues from members of our temple. And I think the one on the left might be the baby Buddha riding on an elephant for Hanamatsuri, but I'm not sure. But I received this statue recently. The one in the middle is what I like to call a garden Buddha. You can get these at Walmart and Home Depot and Woolworths, Target. This is a sitting Buddha, but it's actually a bird feeder. So this really is a garden Buddha with a bird feeder. And the one on the right is Kanon. She's sitting in repose. She's the symbol of compassion in Buddhism. And she's calm, relaxed, and very open. She's feminine. And all these statues I really enjoy. But technically, they should all be on a platform. They're not really supposed to be sitting on dirt like this. So anytime we have a Buddhist statue, out of respect, they should be up on the mantle of our fireplace, not on the floor. They should be on a table. They shouldn't be a doorstop, really. You shouldn't use them for doorstops. But these are kind of out of code, but I like them very much. And I've kept them as gifts from our Sangha. And then these three on the left, I get a lot of these donated to me, and I have to admit they're not my favorite. And this might be cultural. I like my Buddhas kind of fit and trim and well muscled. It's a cultural thing. The reason why they're overweight, and this happens a lot in England in the Middle Ages, if you were heavy or overweight, it meant you were well-to-do and you were well off. And here it's a symbol of being satiated, having all your wants satisfied, wanting for nothing, not having greed, ignorance, or anger. So this is Hote, a Chinese legendary monk from the 11th century. And he also always carries a cloth burlap bag on his back and supposedly gave out candies and treats to children. So another reason why this one is not one of my favorites is it kind of represents good luck at Chinese restaurants. And this is kind of like most people's first encounter with the Buddha. And it's not the historical Buddha. And everybody wants to touch his tummy for good luck. And so I have three of these. They're on platforms, but not my favorite. And then this one on the right is kind of amazing. This was at the car wash at Beach and Garfield, where I live in Huntington Beach. And so when I said, you could buy things at Target, I was kind of surprised that you could buy this quite large Buddha statue at the car wash. And I don't know if it comes with that nenju or not, but I was quite taken by it. And one of the things I kind of noticed, it seemed a little odd to me when I looked at it, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it. The Buddha is usually not in Gasho. And I knew I read it somewhere. I couldn't remember where I read this, but it's actually in this presentation coming up. This hand mudra is usually not done by the Buddha because he's the Buddha. He's in meditation. He's teaching. He's saving all beings from suffering. He's usually not the one in Gasho showing deep gratitude and respect. But, this would be, maybe this is the American Buddha one day. There's a kind of a question going around is someday we'll have an American Buddha, and what would that look like? I think this would be great. It would be like the larger sutra where the Buddha saw all people as golden in color, all people worthy of enlightenment. Everyone is accepted as they are. And so even the Buddha from the larger sutra would bow to all beings. So I like this one a lot. I didn't buy it, but I really liked it. And then these are really quite modern. One of our members at our temple gave this to me on the left, and it was done by a 3D printer. So this is a 3D printer, the latest technology. Those are artificial plants growing out of the top of his head. I don't know what that means. But this is Americans experimenting with representing their appreciation for Buddhism within our culture. And I think it's quite amazing. So I have this one on the back of my book stand behind me. There's a temple, I think in Central California called the 10,000 Buddhas. And my office at work and my home is kind of the 10,000 Buddhas. This is just a small fraction of my vast collection. Now, the one on the right, I got as a gift from somebody who traveled to Paris, France. And I thought it was gorgeous. I want to read you the description. This is an edible, handcrafted, gold-dusted Buddha sculpture filled with a honey-infused silk milk chocolate ganache and finished with a liquid center of Savannah Bee Company honey. So this is a Buddhist piece of wonderful chocolate candy. And, the Buddha's not Jesus. He's not divine. He's fully human like we all are. But I just couldn't come to myself. I just couldn't bring myself to eat this. I just couldn't bite his head off and eat him. So, that's maybe I've got my own Buddhist superstitions now, but I just didn't think eating this was appropriate. So this is the box it came in, and I left it on my kitchen countertop for maybe 6 or 8 months, and then it finally started to decompose. So I finally had to throw it away. But it was a wonderful gift. I just couldn't bring myself to actually eat it. So that's what happened to that Buddha. And then the other thing I like is, and these are very popular in the United States, is Buddhist statues of animals. And so this one on the left is my wife's. She's a yoga instructor. And you may have heard of the Dalai Lama. This is the literal Dalai Lama. So that's my wife's. And then in the middle, on the far left, there's a red fox bowing in Gasho. And we have a large scouting program here at OCBC. And one of the young brownies gave me this bowing red fox on the left in Gasho. And I thought it was just the most thoughtful gift I'd ever received. And I had Reverend Wondra help me. We went on the Japanese version of eBay, and I found that you could buy these, a collection of these in a box of 6. So she helped me purchase this from Japan. So now the 6 on the right are from a collection I purchased. So I have 2 red foxes, and I've got an otter, a penguin, a cat, I don't know what that is, another red fox. There's a white whale. So I really like these. I like animal Gasho Buddhas a lot as well. And then these are also my wife. She told me usually not to talk about her, but she gets credit for her statues. This is a cat. So I think of the cat as being a little bit like me, kind of hyperactive, 9 lives to reach awakening, and kind of always in a hurry. And then we have 2 desert tortoises at my house, very slow. They take their time. They're not in a rush. They practice a little bit every day, and they're kind of assured of reaching their goal. And so 2 different styles of practice, 2 different kinds of personalities. And so each one of us kind of has to find our groove or our path that's customized for us. Some of us do better, maybe in meditation. Others might prefer chanting. There's just different approaches to practice, and we have to find one that's not only practical, but effective for us. So I think these 2 statues are very good reminders of that. So now I want to take you into this book, another quote by James C. Dobbins. He says, "The Pure Land, Buddhism, more than many types of Buddhism, makes eloquent use of form, visual, verbal, meditative, and iconographic, to engender a Buddhist frame of mind, while simultaneously affirming Mahayana themes of formlessness, emptiness, suchness, Dharma body, and nirvana, which are considered congruent and implicit in these Pure Land forms." So just because you have a form that represents Amida Buddha, it doesn't mean that you don't believe or follow the teachings of formlessness, of interdependence. And so they're representing formlessness manifesting itself as form in our everyday lives. So everything in our life is manifesting this underlying formless reality and kind of breaking through into the world we live in so that we can touch that depth. And then the other thing that we're not going to talk a lot about is there's 32 major marks of a Buddha. This one here is very long and elegant fingers. There's also long earlobes. I think there's a little bit of a mustache in there somewhere. There's different characteristics of the Buddha. And so somebody purchased this for me. And this is the mudra that Amida is doing in one of his hands. It's the mudra for teaching, for discourse, for listening and teaching the Dharma. And then my wife and I were in Monterey on vacation, and we went to a Thai restaurant, and they had one of these on the wall. And I thought this was so wonderful. This is exactly like the one I have at home. These long, elegant fingers represents the Buddha. It's a Buddha statue, but just the hand is enough. And then as I walked around to take a better look at it, again, I was a little disappointed or a little taken aback. Underneath it said, "Please wait to be seated." So this was a joke. It's the elegant hand of the Buddha saying, "Wait to be seated." I really like that Buddha statues are showing up in the public arena. But then I cringe a little bit when they're kind of tongue-in-cheek or not respectful. But it's progress. It's progress. Somebody might want to know, what does that represent? And this might be their first contact with Buddhism. So I wanted to talk a little bit about these hand mudras. You can kind of identify the practice of the Buddha statue you have by the way the position of the hands. And so this is a big tip-off. Most Buddhist statues are signaling a practice to the viewer. So there's a lot of these. There's hundreds and hundreds of hand mudras. I have a book that has them all in a single book. The problem is there's no real organizing principle like you have with kanji. It's difficult to look up these hand mudras. There's no organizing principle. There's no alphabetical order to follow. So this one is a gasho that we perform when we say Namo Amida Butsu. It's also called Namaskar. And my wife in her yoga classes also calls it the Anjali Mudra. So same mudra, multiple names. And so this is gasho practice that we do and in gratitude. And then this one is called the Dhyana Mudra. This represents meditation practice. So if you have a Buddha holding his hands in this way, you could kind of say it's kind of signaling or leaning into Tibetan or Zen meditation practice. And so that's the practice that the Buddha is representing. And dhyana is the name of the mudra. It gets pronounced in China as Chan, which is what Zen is called in China. And Chan is pronounced as Zen in Japan. So all these words, Zen, Chan, Dhyana, they're all the same word, just with different pronunciations. And then these two are the hand positions of the earth witness Buddha. When he first realizes awakening under the Bodhi tree at 35, he has one hand touching on the left, touching the earth as witness that this is actually happening and I'm not dreaming. And this Virata mudra, we're going to talk about some more later, but he places it in his lap, and it means that all your wishes will come true. You have nothing to worry about. Your enlightenment is your destiny, and you just need to be on the path. And then Amida Buddha shares that fulfillment wish with the earth witness Buddha. So when you see the Buddha, you have the Vitakka mudra, the one that we looked at earlier at the restaurant. This is the mudra. Oh, it's even doing an icon. This hand mudra is the one that represents discourse or teaching to his audience. And so that's the main practice in our tradition, is to listen to the Dharma, to listen to Dharma talks, to read, and to listen to the teachings. And then he takes this Virata mudra, and instead of having it flat in his lap like the earth witness, it's turned towards us and facing us, telling us that we're okay just as we are, and we're accepted just as we are on the Pure Land path. So we're going to keep our eyes out for these. So James C. Dobbins said there are 3 ways to appreciate Buddhas. Sometimes they represent the quest, sometimes they represent the realization, and sometimes they represent compassion, which is wisdom in action. And so the very cover of this book is a little bit confusing. He's doing the discourse teaching mudra twice, once vertically and once horizontally in the lap. So this Buddha is practicing teaching and spreading of the Dharma. And this is an Amida Buddha statue, even though it's not standing and leaning forwards and coming towards us. So it's kind of surprising, but by looking at the hand mudras, you can identify this as an Amida Buddha statue, because the practice is oral and verbal and listening. So for the quest, we talked about this dhyana mudra for meditation. I have 2 examples of this. This is the Buddha practicing meditation under the Bodhi tree, perhaps not yet enlightened because he's not touching the earth. The one on the right has the dhyana hand mudra. The one on the left has the dhyana hand mudra, but he's also holding a bowl. And I assume that this is the bowl of sweet rice that he received from Sujata and ate, got his strength back, and then was able to go on and practice under the Bodhi tree and realize awakening. And this statue on the left is very precious to me. I was a programmer before my ministerial life, and we had a lot of offices in China. I think it was Shanghai, and we had a lot of offices in India. And one of my workmates had to go to Shanghai and do some training. And he walked up a hill away from the harbor, and he found a monastery, and he bought this for me. It's about 4 to 5 inches tall. It's solid iron, and it's developed this turquoise patina to it, and it weighs about 5 to 10 pounds. It's quite heavy. And this was before 9/11. He was able to get it through customs, and he bought this for me just because he knew Buddhism was important. And this is one of my most priceless to me statues. Next, we have realization. So that was the quest under the Bodhi tree. And then this is the hand mudras we talked about, touching the earth in witness, and the Virata mudra, fulfillment of all wishes. And that's what is happening here. So, if you have this statue, it's signaling this realization, this moment in the Buddha's biography, touching the earth while realizing all of his hopes and desires have all been taken care of by realizing insight. Now we're going to look at compassion. I always remind everyone, and even myself, that this word in English means something different in Buddhism. It doesn't mean being nice or warm or fuzzy. It means wisdom in action. And sometimes you might be a little snarky, but it's what the person needed to hear. It opened their eyes. It propelled them along the path. And so it's that kind of idea. It's something that affects another person in a very positive way towards insight. And so this is the hand mudra of Amida Buddha, the teaching hand mudra on the right, or my left, and also saying to the viewer that you have nothing left to worry about. You've found the Pure Land teachings, and you've been embraced and never abandoned. And so standing is what we're usually used to, and they traditionally are leaning forwards about 15 degrees. So they're leaning into you and verbally calling you to seek the way, and with courage and confidence. So he also says that the interpretation of these statues can also be much more symbolic. The previous three were kind of biographical. These are more symbolic of an emotion, of a feeling. And so the first one he talks about is it symbolizes an event. So this one is a literal event. This is the Buddha dying at 80, entering parinirvana, complete and total awakening. His head is pointing north, and he's looking towards the west, the Western Pure Land. And this is also maybe even more precious to me. My son went on eBay, and I told him how much I wanted this statue. You can always find the Buddha realizing nirvana under the Bodhi tree, but I could never find a statue of the Buddha realizing parinirvana under the twin sala trees. So my son secretly went off and started Googling around eBay. And he found a young man who said that his father was in the Navy, fought in Vietnam, and he opened his footlocker after he passed away, and this statue was in the footlocker. So it's possible this statue came from Vietnam or Thailand or Cambodia or Laos. And so it's made out of solid wood. It's quite large. These are, I think, very difficult to find. And he purchased this for me and gave it to me as a gift. And so this is the Buddha realizing complete and total awakening and realizing life in the Pure Land, facing west. And I try to keep that these compass directions accurate. I try to always place it head north facing west. Now embodying a quality. So this is embodying this idea of compassion, of wisdom active in our everyday life. The one on the left, I almost forgot who it was, but this is Kannon with multiple heads, the Bodhisattva of compassion. And this statue is in the lobby at the Buddhist Temple of San Diego. We have one at OCBC. There's a very nice one at the Vista Buddhist Temple. And Kannon is kind of a sidekick to Amida Buddha on a lot of altars. And then this one is called the Looking Back Buddha. It's only about 3 feet tall. Reverend Ellen Crane was lucky enough, I think, to actually see this in person in Kyoto. And I was surprised it was 3 feet. I thought it would be, 6, 8 feet tall. But this Buddha is actually waiting and looking over their shoulder for stragglers, waiting for everyone to catch up, that nobody's left behind. And so, somebody took artistic license and just one-offed this statue. I mean, it's very profound, it's very meaningful, but it's not the standard, protocol Amida Buddha statue that we're used to looking at. But this is what you do with art, right? You make a statement, and the audience has to figure it out for themselves. And that usually is a deeper appreciation when you have to work it out for yourself. Like, why would the Buddha be turning his head, looking backwards? Why isn't he looking forwards at all the people that are listening to him? But he's trying to bring everyone along. And then the last one is immerses the viewer, which is what I think the Hondo Naijin actually does. The whole thing is a work of art that immerses the viewer. The whole room does that. But I wanted to show you this. I was in Dharma school class at OCBC teaching, I think it was kindergartners, and I noticed this poster hanging on the side of the wall. And it was an ad for, I think JAL, I'm not sure if that's the right 3-letter acronym, Japanese Airlines. This was an ad to travel to Kyoto, to travel to Japan. And I immediately was stunned by this. There are like 1,001 Kannon statues here. And while I was giving this talk at OCBC, one of our members got out their iPhone, which I don't like while I'm talking, but they looked up this image somehow, and it's in Kyoto. It's at the Sanju San Gedo, I think, temple in Kyoto, Japan. And it's 1,001 Kanons, and it's supposed to be immersive, that we're surrounded by Buddhas, that there are Buddhas everywhere. We're immersed in an enlightened reality, but we just don't see it. Everything has already been done. All the qualifications and requirements have been met, but we just don't see it. There's nothing wrong with us, except for the fact that we don't appreciate living in the stream of compassion and wisdom, always calling us. And so I particularly like these kinds of statues because I find they leave me speechless. They make me kind of hold my breath. Like when I was teaching those kindergartners, I lost track of what I was talking about when I saw this poster. It makes me well up a little bit. This is Mahayana Buddhism. There are Buddhas everywhere. And it wants us to awaken to this reality, triggering our imagination, embraced by, 2002 arms. We're safe, we're protected, and our life is now oriented properly on the way. So I wanted to thank you all. I wanted to make sure I finished with enough time for people to ask questions, make comments. I didn't mention this earlier, but James C. Dobbins is not an art historian, and I'm not an art historian. And the way I appreciate these statues is likely different than they were appreciated maybe 800 years ago, but it doesn't make either one more or less authentic. It's very personal, and I think the meaning is in the viewer. There's three ways to interpret meaning of art. It's when it was done, what were the influences at the time, what was the sculptor or artist trying to communicate, and then the third one that I think is very important, it's in the eye of the viewer. It's in the person looking at the art. That's where ultimately where the meaning lies. And this is often how John Lennon talks about his art. He was asked about the meaning of Imagine, and he actually got angry and said, it's not my meaning. I'm just playing with words. The meaning is on your side. It's the audience that determines the value and the meaning of art. And that's the one I lean into. So thank you very much.